I'll never forget the first time I cast a fire spell in Final Fantasy III for the Super Nintendo. Not only because this was the first time I'd seen a custom cutscene in the middle of a pop-up battle, but also because of the way Edgar's eyes popped out of his head when it happened. Creative cutscenes and emotive characters are a long-standing part of the RPG tradition, and there's something I knew I was going to need to have in Willard. For the last 10 weeks, I've had the chance to dive in full-time to the creation of my dream game, Willard. This game is a beast. It was probably a dumb idea to make my dream game as my first game, for a lot of reasons. But now I'm committed. One thing I do know is that it's going to take a long time to finish this game. So my goal for this summer was just to make some headway on the puzzle platformer aspects of the game. I learned so much this summer, and I'm so happy with the progress I made. I chose to start with puzzle platforming as this was the part of Willard that I had least developed going into the summer. I've now added a ton of functionality to this part of my game. I've got 3 main puzzle mechanics developed. I've added item drops, the beginnings of an inventory system. I've created the ability to rewind time so that you can retry puzzles after you make a mistake. And I've started the architecture that will allow player swapping for puzzle purposes. Heading into the last 2 weeks of summer then, I decided to try to wrap things up by making a short, playable demo to show off my progress and get some public feedback. That should be an easy task in 2 weeks, right? Right? You know how they say that the last 10% of the game takes 50% of the time? Well, the same is true with putting together a demo. And as someone on Twitter told me, it's actually that the last 10% takes 90% of the time. I wanted to add some tutorial elements in the form of mini cutscenes, and I originally thought this would be relatively easy. A couple of days into the project, I threw out my entire dialogue system. It was overly complicated, it didn't mesh with the visual events I wanted to accompany them, it was a mess. I spent a couple of days building an ink-based solution based on some tutorials by Trevor Mock. This is an amazing dialogue system, but I soon found that it didn't play nicely with my script-based events. I pretty much spent 10 days pulling my hair out, as attempt after attempt after attempt to get my tutorial cutscenes working failed. So somewhere around day 12, I decided forget this. I'm just going to create my own cutscene system. Wait, you might be thinking, isn't Matt a total code noob and isn't making a custom cutscene script from scratch super complicated? Yes, and yes. But we're gonna do it anyways. The core of my cutscene system is based around 2 types of script. I have a cutscene event script, which runs things like animations, dialogue, movement, camera zooms. And then I also have a cutscene manager script, which freezes the player at the start, works through each of the events, and then gives control back to the player when the cutscene's over. You can see an early test of this system here. I'm still a code newbie, so the fact that my first attempt at this worked, and actually worked pretty well, was awesome. However, as I used this, I noticed that I wanted more customization features, and as I added more and more, I found that the code was getting complicated. Before long, navigating my event script was kind of like trying to memorize a dungeon in the first Phantasy Star game. It also became problematic that when I looked at my cutscene manager, all I could see was a massive list of cutscene events. The more complex the event, the more difficult this was going to be to manage. So I went back to the drawing board. My next iteration still used the same foundation, but now I used separate scripts for each type of event. There's a script just for zooming, another for dialogue, animations, movement, camera panning. Now I can add a lot more customization as the base code is actually pretty simple. It's also way easier to manage in my cutscene manager because I can actually see what type of event I'm dealing with. I can now make a relatively complex cutscene with many different moving parts, and it can be managed without too much difficulty. Here's a sample of what this new system can do. So, With this new system in tow, I feel like I'm finally ready to make some serious headway on my puzzle levels, and to finish this demo. With the summer at an end, I'm back to my full-time job, so development is going to slow down a little the next while. I plan to post my next devlog once I'm ready to share and discuss the results of my demo. It'll probably be a little while before you hear from me here again in a devlog form, but you can always follow my more regular updates on Twitter if you're interested. Thanks as always for being part of this journey. This community is a huge part of what keeps me motivated and what pushes me to get my butt in gear some days. Thanks. Till next time, this is Matt with Night Run Studio. Cheers.